Okay, everyone, welcome to another episode of KUDEN Radio, the podcast for serious martial artists, ninjutsu practitioners that are looking for more than just, moves, and obviously self-defense oriented warrior protectors, us, right? So anyway, waiting for James to check in, might be having some glitches. A friend stop in at the dojo right after classes tonight, so kind of put me just a few minutes behind, but he came all the way from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, so I made some time for my friend. Anyway, so we're going to jump into things. So again, thanks for joining us with this episode of KUDEN. I was actually going to run a different based on my schedule of topics to run for the podcast. I was actually going to do something else, but that's okay. I can move it to another slot. But I've been thinking about something for a while, right? So let me share something, and it's a question, right? So, can you imagine Hatsumi Sensei getting frustrated, or any grandmaster? If you're not an art and you're not, that's fine, right? I mean, this is an open forum, but I'm referencing my teacher, right? So, can you imagine Hatsumi Sensei getting frustrated when he took flack from all the hacks, trolls, even former students who, this wasn't for them, but instead of letting it be not for them, became dicks and douchebags. Anyway, and those trying to condemn and bring him down, right? Bring the Bujinkan down over the years, right? Can you imagine, right? Him, maybe some of you can, right? But can you imagine where we would all be, those of us within this training, right, this collective, where we would all be if he lacked belief in himself, if he didn't believe in the power of what he was learning from Takuma Sensei, his teacher, or where we'd be if he was worried about what lesser minds and weaker hearts thought of him, thought of ninjutsu, or any of the other crap that's been slung at him in the art since the beginning, right? Since I jumped on, and that was right 1980. So I can tell you where we'd be. We'd all be doing some form of tic-tac-toe, Hong Kong Fu, or mixed up martial arts. That's what we'd be doing, right? And we'd probably like it because we wouldn't know any better, right? But anyway, so if ego hasn't completely hijacked the controller between your ears and you want more, right, then just to be told what you want to hear and a comfortable ride through the attainment of belt levels, then as they say in amusement parks, please hold on to the bar because the ride's about to begin. All right, so I'll talk to you about more about this when we get back. All right, so let's just run the intro and I'll talk to you in a minute. Question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio, real training for real people in a real world. And that's still my real story, and I'm still sticking to it. Sporting the dojo t-shirt. It's not just this. Got other cool designs in the back. I don't know, James, what the hell am I wearing? I think I'm wearing the 9 Skulls, 1 Path shirt, because we have another one that has a wood block print and says Feel the Power. But either way, we also have some other cool ones on shameless plug, a bunch of other ones on wcidragonsden.com. If you haven't been there, one says, nobody ever said you had to like it. One says, hi, I'm a really nice person, learning to be cruel, vicious, mean, and nasty. And on the back, with a ninja silhouette, it says, can I practice on you? Been dying to have one of those for years. And a whole bunch of other stuff. Anyway, just a fan of cool shirts from back in the day. Some of you who were part of Shidoshi Malmstrom's dojo might remember some of the ones that we had back in the day, like if you died during training, we split your gear, right? Because gear's freaking expensive, right? If you're not giving 100%, you're taking up way too much space. Right? So again, warrior mindset is not comfortable. Anyway, all right. So kind of let off with things. James is in the wings. So everything's working well. In the lead in, if you missed that, what I was mentioning was at the end of class, one of my longtime, like we're talking like early to mid 80s, longtime friends in this martial art, Court Elliott, actually stopped in my dojo. For those of you who know Court Elliott, Court is from Toronto. And I don't just mean he's like from Toronto and he's living somewhere else now. I mean, like, he's in Toronto, Ontario. And for those of you who know or have seen Pennsylvania on a map, other than it's yellow or whatever the map you have, right? It's quite the drive. And so he was actually on his way for some little gig that he has in Baltimore, and it took him past the dojo. So he stopped in. So I skated in, not under the wire. I think I probably, I don't know, 3 minutes late for those of you who are on live. But anyway, where the hell was it? Oh, yeah, during the lead in, I kind of mentioned something and asked a question, and I'll get back to that. But I was really thinking about not only if you were on for that, and again, it'll come up again because that was just kind of a little excerpt from something I have prepared. I think I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that not that I'm going to stop pandering to students like I've done it, right? Or potential students, because some people are never going to sign up for programs. Some people are never going to do coaching. Some people are never going to do more than hunt and peck through the art, but hop online and talk like that they're all in. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, right? But my charge, so to speak, right? My responsibility as a teacher in this art is to make sure that it survives into, if not the next couple of generations, at least the next one. So I just enrolled a student. I'd like to say a new student, but it doesn't work out that way. It's not like the academy. At the academy, 9 out of 10 people, probably more than that, 9.9 out of 10 people that walk in the door, been thinking about doing martial arts for a long time, but have not. Most of the people that get involved with me, coaching, mentoring, those kind of things, they have binged, listened to KUDEN. They have watched most of Whiteboard Wednesday. In the case of the student that kind of, I don't know what to call it, right? Because enrolling isn't a good idea. I mean, I guess that all these words are good, but based on the way we do things, we established a teacher-student relationship today, right? But he's been following my stuff for, I think what he said was 10 years, right? But he has been training with other people during those times and whatever, right? And so that's really what I want to lean into. Okay. Now, does somebody who comes to me have to be working with, or have to have worked with, some name, right? I don't know the teacher that he worked with. It doesn't matter to me, right? But there's a sense of consistency, and at some point, right, folks decide to pull the trigger and figure out what they know, what they don't know, and decide they're going to get it fixed, and that's fine. But for the entire run of KUDEN, I kind of leaned into helping people get started, helping people get questions answered. Most of my students, long distance and in house, admit to having a problem keeping up with all this stuff, right? And James knows how much we're doing, but this is what KUDEN's like, about 2 hours every Monday, right? Whiteboard Wednesday started out being about 40 minutes, but lately we've been averaging about an hour, hour and 10, something like that. And that's free on YouTube. Um, the blog Ninja News on online ninja academy.com. What is it? What the hell is it? Is it Ninja? It's just Ninja hyphen News, I think. Right. I just revamped that over the weekend because we had this glitch and only some of the things were posting, and so now there's like a butt ton of my articles and stuff that are now available. So the point that I'm getting at here is um, do-it-yourselfers will almost always be do-it-yourselfers, but I can't be worried about whether or not they're ever going to enroll or they're ever going to grab a teacher, or people that have an excuse for everything from today until the third Thursday of next week. I can't fix those things. So I don't know if anybody's noticed or not, but Whiteboard Wednesdays typically have been a little bit more edgy, even from its inception. And we're what, 150, almost 200 episodes. No, not that much. Probably 130, 150 episodes. Whiteboard Wednesday. This one, right, we're at episode 227. But that one's, when I say edgy, I mean I call things what they are. Right. I've been a little bit more, I don't know, not PC, because I'm never PC. Just, I don't know, a little bit more gentle with helping people get from point A to point B. And I'm not getting any younger. So I'm going to lean into the things that warrior aspirants need to hear. Okay? Will it be comfortable? No, probably not. They weren't comfortable when I heard them either. But that's not the point, right? You don't make a sword by just cutting the metal out of, with a saw or whatever, and then attaching some wood to it and wrapping it up and calling it a day, right? It goes through how many heat treatments, banging on with hammers to shape it, right? The quench, whether it's oil or water, and most swords, most attempts at making a sword, I get this straight from blacksmiths, they don't make it, right? They don't, right? Because there's whatever going on inside that metal and whatnot. Blacksmiths, swordsmiths have a shit ton of broken swords and cracked things and stuff that at some point in the process didn't make it, right? So they're off in a corner. But it's the nature of things, right? If this were mere martial arts, and if this were not about facing challenges and hardships and overcoming those kind of things, it wouldn't be called ninjutsu, right? You wouldn't have a symbol, right, for perseverance. You wouldn't have, we wouldn't have, fudoshin and all these principles about remaining unmoving in the face of shit that's supposed to toss you around. So anyway, there's that. So again, for those of you who've been along for the haul, I appreciate it. But I also understand if moving forward, some folks decide, like some folks in the past, they were regulars and they said something, or there was a comment or whatever, and it was kind of argumentative, and I let them win, right? There's a couple of times I remember going, well, okay, you won that one, okay, but just because it's your belief system doesn't make it right, and doesn't make you, warrior material. Okay? If every time a teacher or a mentor or a coach says something, they're going to be met with a yeah, but, or you don't understand or whatever, then, I don't know why. I don't know why I thought I could do it differently by just sticking with somebody when, there's a very specific, there's a range, but there's a very specific personality type, right? That they're gonna get it even if it kills them, and and that doesn't mean they're a tough guy, tough girl, anything like that, right? It's not this bullshit, no fear kind of crap from a bunch of decades ago. And then what was that met with? There's another bumper sticker that came out after that one. Fear this, something like that, right? Again, just bullshit mentality, right? People that play these games, but students that want to lean into things. And this came up during the conversation with my new student today. And I don't want to name his name if he doesn't want anybody to know that he's like doing super secret ninja stuff. It's not super secret, but what came up was this, like a lot of people that come to me, he's been training for a long time, and he's been taught the moves, and he's been taught that this is the right way, this is the way we do it, all those answers, right? All those things, but what he's still left with is a feeling that on one side, nobody has covered the why, right? Why is the hand where it is in Seigan, and or why is the rear hand where it is in Doko? Why are there so many variations? And is it true that you can just pick one and do the one that you like, right? You can do it any way you want. Okay. I mean, ultimately, from a universal truth standpoint, man, you can do anything any way you want. Okay. But, just because we have freedom of choice doesn't mean that we're free from the consequences of those choices. We all know these cliche things. Anyway, on one side, left with the why. And then, of course, that leans into a feeling of, if I don't know why these things are done this way, how the hell am I going to do this against somebody who's trying to beat, break, or kill me on the street? So what the hell, right? How can I be sure that I know it, right? Because I'm going to use this blanket phrase, and I hate using like what do you call them? Absolutes, because there's no such thing. But anybody can look good and look like they know what they're doing in the dojo, right? But most of us are not under the adrenal response, and not to the degree that we would be if we knew that any mistake could cost us the ultimate price, right? So anyway, but these were the two things that kind of came up. And a bunch of years ago, several students were just, I don't know if they just off the cuff used it or what, but they started calling me the strategy and tactics guy. And I really do think that that's where my forte lies, because you can learn the moves from anybody. I mean, people do, right? They go to YouTube and jump all over the place and whatnot. But what's behind all that? Right. So anyway, but what I was really leaning into was the process, right? And again, in Mikyo, a lot of the stuff that underpins what we're doing, right? That gives the Ninpo name to ninjutsu, right? Why it's Ninpo and not Nindo, right? And again, maybe we can do that in another episode. But there has to be something in place. Now, having said all that, I also know that there are folks with a personality type, and there's something inside them, right, in their heart of hearts, that keeps driving them forward. But what they lack are the tools that will either help them figure things out, or the lessons that will teach them what they need to know, or the I guess we're back to tools again. It's a different set of tools, though, that allow them to expose weaknesses that need to be fixed. Okay. What I'm getting at here is, and this is something I talked with the student today. I have a question for my new white belts in the dojo. Sometimes it gets asked in the dojo. If I missed you and you're new and I haven't asked it in a while, and you're listening now, well, count this as that question. Okay. So the question is, what's your first goal? What is your first goal? Because the student and I had a discussion. He wants to teach eventually and things like that, and we had this long discussion about how the martial arts is probably the only realm that I can think of where there's this assumption that once you're able to do it, right? Once you have a black belt, then you're automatically qualified to teach. Those those skill sets are not inclusive, right? You can be really, really good at something and be shitty at trying to communicate that to somebody else in a way that they can pick it up. But anyway, so the question I ask with brand new people, right? What's your first goal, or whatever, and they'll say some people will actually say black belt, right? Which is in our curriculum 2.5 to 3 years away, and that's with consistent attendance, training, progress up through the belts, and all that, right? Other ones will go, my next belt, or whatever. They keep hinting around about learning certain skills, learning certain techniques. Who knows, right? It kind of it's really jumping over a critical first piece that I think that even most of us that have been committed the entire time um, didn't realize that it was there because um, I don't know, it was a part of our nature, or we didn't know. We didn't even know about it. We just kind of jumped in, right? And while all those other things are important, one of the not one of the first most important skill or habit that a white belt needs to develop is the habit of coming to class in whatever form. Because my long distance students, right, they might come to a telecall, right? That's a Q&A kind of thing, or they might jump on one of the NIMPO master classes, so it's that way, or it might be bringing up a video lesson and going through it that way, whatever, right? But the academy, obviously, people are showing up for class, right? But that very first habit that needs to be developed, right? It's not a skill. It's not a what I need to learn. It's not a prize, although there are lots of prizes that will come after it, right? It is the first goal is developing the habit to come to class or to be working through a lesson at least twice a week, every week, consistently. Preferably, right? You're learning this lesson, and then you don't need to be in front of the video, or you don't need to be coming to class or whatever. You can just practice it, or you can practice your kamae, or whatever it is you're doing, whatever the focus is, right? Consistently every day, right? And that has to be like priority, because if you don't develop that habit, then all the other habits are overriding it. The distraction habit, the I don't feel like it habit, all those kind of things, right? Um, so that's the first goal I give students, right? It's this one. Uh, and most of my students, that when they come in, they're put into an intro program, an introductory program. They're not thrown into. They're not. Most are not allowed to enroll into a full program, okay? Because I'm vetting them to make sure that they're going to be a good student, and that intro program actually creates a paradigm where they develop that habit, and it also gives them a decent shake about the program. And I don't get it in my head that, oh, I got somebody in the dojo, oh, it's a forever thing, and then I'm disappointed or pissed off, or I feel like I've been stabbed in the back, or they're disloyal or whatever when they quit. Well, it was me that worked up my freaking expectations. So but once they've been in that for a while, then we start pointing to the next goal. So what's the next goal? Okay. Well, the next goal is to qualify for long-term training. Okay. This really rubs Westerners the wrong way because we assume that we can just pull up to a fucking drive-up window, right? Order whatever number 26 or meal number 9 or whatever, and we pay. And since the customer's always right, we should just be allowed to do whatever. Okay. Well, the customer and I don't believe the customer's always right because there's assholes in the world, right? Sorry, if you're a dick, you're a dick, right? But even if the customer were always right, that doesn't work in a martial arts school, because if somebody had their shit together, life skills wise, self-defense wise and whatnot, they wouldn't need any of the lessons in that dojo. They'd be there for mental masturbation and earning another prize that ego could show off to everybody else. Okay. So it doesn't work that way. Okay. And those are not my words. Those are words from master teachers. Okay? So anyway, so again, if I've twacked somebody in the nose or the nuts or whatever a little bit too hard, everybody knows where the back button is. Everybody knows where the cat videos are stored. Everybody knows where, whatever. Okay. And that's fine. Right. But I need to hunker down, and I need to make sure that the students that are serious about training are getting training. Right. And we're not talking about measuring up to my standards, because, unless you're, getting up and starting whatever at 7 a.m. and working on something for 7 hours straight, and then have dinner, a little bit of family time, and then you're up for another 3 or 4 hours into the evening after everybody goes to bed, and then, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody who can, right, want something and they're willing to do what they need to do to get it, right? So anyway, if you saw the screen, right, and if you didn't, I'll pop it up again just in case people were running late or you didn't see the what do you call them, the promo thing, right? What we're focusing on is becoming the master you want to be. That's the fantasy, right? Everybody wants to be this master. They want to be Hatsumi Sensei, whatever. Okay, but just like the skipping over of something really critical to success, which is developing the habit or the habits that will allow for that to take place, right? Anything that happens, it's not going to survive the long term. Okay. So, and that habit for doing anything, right? Training, do something every day, right? For your training, for your practice, right? Even if you don't know what else to do, but the sanshin, or a couple of kamae, right? You can practice 3 repetitions of each kamae on each side, and then do the next one, then do the next one, whatever, every day. Science says you can develop the habit in as little as 12 days. In Mikyo, in the Tendai school, it's 21 days, right? So maybe it is as little as 12, but if ego leans into what's the least I need to do to get, well, then not warrior material, let alone ninja material. It just doesn't work that way. Okay? And these are words that I had to hear and swallow and get over myself, because I was raised to be lazy. I was raised to sleep on the couch and call off work. And that was my role models, except for my grandparents on my mom's side. Right. But there was something in there, and teachers said, if that something is in there and you want it to fulfill what its destiny is, what its purpose is, or whatever, there's a whole shit ton of you that needs to get out of the way. All those habits that were developed and learned from people that weren't going where you want to go and aren't at the level that you want to be, you need to drop them. Okay. So, anyway, so what we're going to do with this episode is we're going to start at a core basic piece. Now we have things set up in the academy, and of course, I interact with students and whatnot online, and give them lots of opportunities to make sure that they're coming to class, or engaging with the training. But the reality is I can't make people, and I will not make people come to class. What I will do is put them on an agreement, right? On a coaching agreement. And see, some people get motivated because they paid for it and then they need to come, right? And I don't mean you can come and go as you damn well please, right? That's not traditional either. Um, but I also don't have the number of students that Toke had, or any of the other teachers where you could just go and pay by class. Because you know what? If you didn't show up, somebody else was, right? So I mean, they have enough students that they can go whatever. But what I have found is that if somebody is paying for a month, or they're if we have an agreement and they're in for at least 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever, they tend to focus more. Okay, because they're going to lose something if they don't, right? And since we live in a fairly peaceful world these days, and you're not running the risk of losing your life, then there's still has to be that consequence, which is what warriors deal with, right? But what I want to take a look at is something that we give students when they first walk in, and what I really want to do is I want to look at this as a framework that, yeah, will help you change your belief system. Well, not you, maybe anybody else anybody that's going to put it to use. So that maybe you, maybe not be you. And please note that when I use the word you, you're hearing it on your end because, you're one person listening to me on the other end. But on my end, I know that I'm talking to multiple people that are listening at the same time, and into the future that are listening to a podcast, right? Like an audio only kind of thing. So I'm saying you so that the receiver on the other end gets affected by that linguistic pattern. But it's really up to you as to whether you paint yourself into the story. So anyway, and the truth of things is that a teacher can only be as involved or as engaged as the student is. They can't do it for them. They can't want it for them more than they want it for themselves. And any teacher that wants somebody to get something, right, whether that other person wants it or not, that's not student oriented. That teacher has some kind of a need or an agenda or whatever, right? And I'm not saying that we're not teaching so that people actually get it, right? And we want you to get it, but we can't want anything. We can't want your goal more than you want it. We can't want, and speaking from the Gozanze side of the mandala, right? 6 arms, fire, weapons in each hand, fangs. That's not the way the world works. Regardless of what mommy and daddy or some teacher or whatever told anybody, it's not the way the world works, right? It's ugly. It's it's what you make it, but it's not bending over to make things. We human beings have been creating safe spaces for eternity, right? For as long as we've been walking on the planet. Well, those safe spaces were called towns and villages and cities and neighborhoods and not condos, but like apartment complexes and knowing your neighbor and all that kind of stuff. Not creating little timeout areas where we can get away from the ugliness. Right. The truth is that nature doesn't give a shit. Okay. If we all moved out of, I moved out of my house and everybody moved out of this city, and pretty much the size of a town. But anyway, moved out. Wouldn't take very long until like nature started taking over, trees and grass and all kinds of stuff, breaking stuff up. Right. It'll just move in. Right. It's impersonal. Right. That doesn't mean it won't help you, but it's impersonal. Okay. And from a warrior side of things, both on the spiritual side and on the combat side, there has to be an acknowledgement of the ugliness. Okay? Because only once we handle that and we put our big boy and big girl panties on and we develop a rock solid sense of confidence by going through true hardship, can our minds and our hearts actually start to relax, where we can actually not only see the beauty in the world but enjoy it. Okay, because otherwise we're just waiting for somebody to say something we don't like, or we're whatever the next shit that we're afraid of around the corner is. Anyway, so one of the things, and this is what I want to cover during this one. We in the dojo, we have this 3-part student creed, and I know I've talked about this in the past. So if you're a binge listener to KUDEN, I apologize. It'll just be a reminder. But we have this thing, but this 3-part student creed is actually based on a core pivotal piece in Mikyo that is actually a set of 3 vows or 3 statements of commitment that a student makes to formally enter the path. People like to talk about traditional, but they only want to pick and choose what they want. So we have it in an adjusted form. So it doesn't sound so spiritual. It doesn't sound so woo-woo. It doesn't make somebody feel like it's divisive between what their religious leanings are or whatever, right? But there are these 3 core pieces. And so if I ever say the 3-part student creed, this is what I'm leaning into. But it's based on, in Japanese, it's called the Sankie, right? So triple refuge, that kind of thing. But it's much more than just these 3 statements of commitment, and that's what I want to dive into during this episode. So I've got a bunch of notes. So if it looks like I'm looking kind of away from the camera and I'm looking down, I don't want to miss anything. This is going to be a full on ride, and I didn't put it together to ruffle anybody's feathers or whatever. That's not what I do. But what I didn't do was worry about who was going to be bothered by it as I was covering it. Because if I twist things and I water it down and I make it something that makes people comfortable, especially those who probably aren't ready to do what needs to be done, all I do is set them up for disappointment or to be angry or whatever, right? And I put things out in a way that is actually detrimental to the students who are going to do the work. So this is going to be one of those little rocky road kind of things, but it's not rocky road because that's the way I'm covering it. It's rocky road because of the way any given listener or receiver wants to or is ready to get the lessons. Okay. So anyway, that's where I'm going to go with this. Again, there are these 3 statements. I'll dive into this in a minute, but at the moment, and I've been remiss in doing this as well because I need to make sure that I remind people because they can get caught up in the lesson and whatever. Okay. Whatever platform you're on, right? If there's the ability to like, share, subscribe, all that kind of cool stuff, share things out so other people get the benefit. Great. If not, if you hate it, like it, hate it, whatever, leave a comment. That's helpful. Not that I won't change just because I irritated somebody, but how do I? Right? Before I say hi to everybody that's checked in, let me be very, very clear about something. And I just covered this with a new student that enrolled at the academy, so he's local. I do set out to be direct. I can be less than politically correct because the truth is not politically correct, right? And this is when I say truth, I don't mean my truth because no such thing exists, right? That's an opinion or reconciliation between conventional truth, right? How we navigate the world, and ultimate truth, what is, right? This personal truth shit, that's just a series of beliefs and opinions that allow us to guide ourselves through the world. But that's usually based on cherry picking what we want to buy into. Right? Ultimate truth is what it is, right? I mean, you can't reasonably argue with it. I see. I added the word reasonably. right? Logically, rationally, right? Because anybody can argue about anything. If you don't believe me, jump on Twitter or X, right? You know, check out what people are posting on all kinds of places, right? Just dumbass shit. Anyway, and I think some people like to fight just for the sake of fighting, right? They can take that shit somewhere else. Anyway, so if you ask me a question or I'm teaching a lesson and it's not targeted at anybody, right? And somebody gets offended, um, that's a personal thing on their end because I wasn't attacking anybody. I was just passing on the lesson as it is, right? If I say something to a student because they're getting in their own way or they're doing things that are harmful or whatever, and we have a teacher-student relationship, and I hurt their feelings, right? I probably meant it. I'll justify probably in a minute. Okay. So if I mean to be stern and I mean to push a button, right, then, right, if that person is waiting for an apology because I hurt their feelings or I was mean or whatever, they're going to be waiting for a long time. And this goes to one of these, it's both in Mikyo and in Ninpo, right? Acting with intention, right? Being all in on our decisions, okay? Not only saying it, hopefully, you know, I want, James, was it you and I that were talking about passive aggressive bullshit earlier, right? You know, everybody can be tough when they're, you know, 100 miles away and they're leaving a freaking flaming comment or sending in an email in all capitals or whatever, right? That's it's not the warrior way, as Sean Connery might say, or might have said. This is if I mean to be blunt, if I mean to push the buttons, you're not getting an apology because I meant it. That's authenticity. However, if I do something and it comes across the wrong way and that was not my intention, all of my students know I will go above and beyond to make sure that I make that right. And I absolutely will apologize because now that's on me because I somehow screwed up right speech, right thought, right action. And I missed the mark in the way I was communicating things. Okay. I have long since gotten over the thing that we parents teach children. And I'm guilty of it with my oldest, that, you know, reach out and smack somebody or push them over or whatever. And then we tell them to apologize and say, you're sorry. Okay. But the child wasn't sorry. They felt like doing that. Now I'm not talking about raising a child who's feral, who just goes around and does that stuff. But what we are doing them is teaching them how to lie. Okay. What we need to say is that's not appropriate. Right. And again, all those lessons, how would you feel if they did it to you? That kind of thing. Right. But we can tell them we can give them a different script. Right. I'm sorry that my anger got the best of me, and or I thought it would be fun to hit you, knock you over, whatever the conditions were, right? And I'm going to do my best to control myself later, okay? Or however we have to do that, again, based on the situation. I'm just making up a script as I go along here, right? But we were conditioned from a long time ago to feel guilty if we don't say we're sorry for something that we actually meant to do. That gets awfully convoluted. So a lot of the lessons that we have are just about getting more in touch with raw reality, right, as it is. So anyway, James, I can see that the topic was not uber alluring for this one because the numbers aren't going anywhere. That's okay. The right people who are looking for what this stuff has to offer will find it, and that's okay. I'm not looking at things to be like, look how many followers we have. Look how many. I mean, just because you have a shit ton of followers, right? That also probably means that on Facebook they're called friends, but not a friend bone in their body because they barely know you, right? Accept me as a friend and don't block me. Anyway, I don't need a lot of friends. So anyway, before I jump into this creed as a framework, as a model, right, for fixing and or realigning things that are necessary if we are to be successful, if we are to gain the greatest benefit, if we are to become that master we want to be, there's this process, right? And this simple three statement or three part thing is it's way deeper. And this is probably the first time that I've gone into it, even with my students that have been around for a long time, to this depth, right? I talk about it in small pieces, but I decided to go all in on this one because I do believe that the students that, like me, who were at a certain stage in their life that did not either didn't have great role models or had great role models, but they still weren't good examples for warriorship. Okay, they need this. Right, they need things like this. This is the invisible part of the training. Right? Anybody that just wants the punching, kicking, badass kind of stuff, well, the overt badass kind of things, right? Walk around with chip on your shoulder, chest sticking out, holding the black belt, tabs of the black belt. Look what I have, right? Or flying to Japan for 3 days so they can get a picture with a teacher with their brand new Grand Poobah certificate or whatever before flying back home, and only went to the class so that they could get a picture with the teacher. And yeah, anyway, yeah, believe it or not, I know, believe it or not, it happens, right? And they all have, excuses for things, but it's all right. So before I jump into that, James, who do we have on? Anybody say hi? Anybody have a counter comment, counter argument, whatever?
The only thing that's in right now is Jared's on and said good evening.
Awesome. Jared, awesome. Hope things are going well on your end. I know you had a little speed bump in life there a week or 3 ago. Hopefully that's all taken care of. So anyway, all right. Let's see. So that's it then? Nothing else?
That is it.
All right. Well, then let's just rock and roll. So bring up my notes here so I don't miss anything. Okay. So again, if you were on for the intro at the very beginning, I've been pondering some stuff, right? And so I'm going to lead off with that. So this is not really a story, but this needs to be understood. Because if we can't be honest with ourselves and we can't be clear about what's going on in the way we make choices and the way we skate by responsibilities, those kind of things, or pick and choose things to train with because, most people practice and train with things that they're already good at, right? They not only ignore things that they're not to the point where those things don't get very much work, but there's some things that just get flat out dropped off the list, right? They don't even think about them because, well, it's that bad that they don't want to do it, right? So, but it doesn't mean that it's not there, okay? So, what I did was I just kind of penned something out here. If you were on for the intro a little bit, this is going to overlap, but I think this is important, right? Because I think way too many people see martial arts from the perspective of a hobby or a recreation, but they talk a lot about it being a lifestyle and whatnot. But life is our litmus test. Okay. So let me share some thoughts with you. All right. So, given your name, given your accomplishments, given your rank or status in the martial arts, in the company you work for, or within your family, and yes, your privilege in society, regardless of what the media and those with an agenda and those who have your ear would say, right? And I know this word privilege, man, right? It's just going to derail people because this one word has made more racists in the last couple of years than any that I can think of. Okay? And I never thought growing up in the 60s and watching the shit that was happening and growing up with a racist stepfather that I would live to see a time when people were calling things something that they had no fucking clue about. But it gave them something to hang on to. And then they wanted to get into this and be a warrior, but they were leading with a victim mentality. Just boggles my mind. Anyway, so again, given those things and the fact that, I mean, we live in the West, okay? The poverty rate in this country, right? In the US, the poverty rate, right? People on welfare getting that kind of thing, right? The poverty rate makes somebody wealthy in 75% of the rest of the world. So maybe it's not that. Maybe it's decision making about how the money gets spent or what we're going to do with it or other habits that suck things out. And again, I know the numbers are going to dwindle and people are going to turn this off, but if we can't be honest about a problem and how we might be mucking things up, and we can't defend ourselves against us. I can't defend myself against me and the shit that I'm doing to trample through my life. I'm not sure why I should even be looking at how to defend myself against another human being. But again, that's where the student creed points. But anyway, so again, given your name, accomplishments, all that kind of stuff, right? Given your privilege, all that, given what percentage of crimes are prosecuted or how many things aren't covered, right, by matters of law, right? Even though, I don't know, maybe they should be, maybe they shouldn't. I'm a big fan of a quote that I heard from Penn Jillette of Penn and Teller, the comedy duo. He once said that anytime you ever hear somebody say there ought to be a law, there probably oughtn't, right? Because they just want an agenda. They just want a control kind of thing, right? Now, I as an ex-federal police officer, I do believe that most, and maybe not most, but at least half the laws are on the books to protect the general public against people who don't give a shit about anybody but themselves. The lowest denominator in the thing. Because if we didn't have certain laws in the books, they wouldn't give a shit. They wouldn't look either way when they were crossing intersections. They wouldn't do half the stuff because they just have this belief that everybody else is just a plaything or in their way, and the only person that matters is them. That's called super ego, but either way, right? So, given that, again, percentage of crimes not prosecuted, all that stuff, right? It's safe to say that most of us get away with more than we should, given the laws already present. Okay? And we certainly get away with doing less than we should based on our known, right? The stuff we know, right? Based on our responsibilities, based on our agreements, things we say we want to achieve, those kind of things. We certainly get away with doing less in those areas, right? So what I've been thinking about, and again, I have to, it's kind of like a good parent, right? You observe, or a good martial arts instructor, especially with beginners. You see everything. you forgive or forget 90% of it, and you focus on the 10% that's important to get that student from where they are to the next piece, right? It's kind of like letting a shodan sit on a testing board. I do, but they don't get a vote because shodans are notorious for forgetting what they look like when they were at that lower belt level in testing, but because they know this here and now, right? They're going to gauge that white belt going to his first next belt color or whatever based on what a shodan knows about what's correct. Um, just so my guys have to get over that before they're allowed to have a vote. They can have a say, they can contribute things, and usually what ends up happening is the other black belts are like, yeah, but he's there, going to here. If you're looking for perfection there, wow. Okay. So, but again, it would be nice if people recognize this, right? This the amount that we get away with, right? But most never seem to, right? They don't, right? Right. And when we all look around our world, we see people getting away with shit. And then, we talk about it like we don't, right? Skate a stop sign, just traffic stuff. Don't signal, cut somebody off in traffic, flip them off, all kinds of things, right? I mean, that's on the low end of things, right? 10% of people won't steal no matter what. 10 to 20% will steal no matter what. Right? I learned this as a security professional. Security things are put into place for the 70, 80% in the middle as deterrents. Because again, some people won't steal, 10%, give or take, won't steal no matter what. Others will steal no matter what. Okay? The trick to not have a company go out of business is to deter the other group that will, under the right conditions, to be determined by them. Right? So, again, right? How many little things do we have going on? Now, we're going to narrow this down for success in our martial arts training, which will then equate to life and mastery and those kind of things. But again, so earlier I asked about, well, I'll just repeat the question, right? Or this thought that I had, right? If you missed the intro coming in, can you imagine Hatsumi Sensei getting frustrated when he took all that flack, all that bullshit for decades from hacks, trolls, those trying to condemn and bring him down, to bring the Bujinkan down, all that kind of stuff, right? Everything from calling it fake to calling him a charlatan, all kinds of stuff, right? And there were some people that they didn't like the way training was going, so they freaking jumped ship, and then just man, bad shit, right? But can you imagine him sounding like a lot of people when they take flack or they're called to task or whatever, right? And, so I'm going to do my best. I'm not going to do a Japanese accent, right? But what popped up in my head was like Soke talking like a lazy beach bum, right? So, all these people are doing their stuff, and can you imagine him going like, man, do you guys not remember or not know how bad those other martial arts and martial arts instructors are out there, right? Do you guys know how hard it is, or like how hard it was to train with Takamatsu Sensei, or how hard it was to build this new thing in spite of everything that was already in place, like all these other martial arts that like were already established, right? Do you guys not understand what usually happens, right, when people get this kind of power? And I didn't do that. Right? There's all this deflection and shit, right? Can you imagine? Right? But here's the thing, right? None of us, you, me, none of us, right? Well, maybe James, right? James will get credit for stuff. But You don't get credit for what you don't do. You don't get credit for the fact that you could have been worse or you could have done worse, right? You don't get credit for not breaking societal, family, or group norms for which the standards are low, and or breaking the laws for which the enforcement mechanisms are weak, or there just happened to not be somebody there to see you when you did it. You get getting credit for, well, it could have been worse. Right? Well, yeah, you're right. Okay, so yeah, you could have been, instead of average, you could have been like, really bad shithead. Right? Nobody through our first president, right? Again, I'm going to borrow from the United States because that's where I am, right? Nobody threw our first president, General George Washington, a parade because his boat didn't sink while crossing the Delaware for the overnight attack, right? Which was, it actually broke the rules of warfare at that time, right? There was this just a generally accepted rule that there was no combat after dark. Can you believe it? Shit, now like major guerrilla raids, that's what happens a lot, right? But after the sun went down, you couldn't see all that kind of stuff, right? Everybody went to their individual camps and ate dinner, laughed it up, right? Felt bad about losing, Bob or Liam or whoever dropped during the day, right? But my point is, he didn't get accolades because something bad didn't happen, right? Everybody, he didn't get a participation trophy for being in a boat that didn't sink, right? So we do what's right. I'm going to say this because most people understand this. We do what's right because it's right, right? We don't do what's wrong because it's wrong. But see, I've been processing this stuff for a long time. It's not even that. We do what's right. I'm making air quotes for those of you listening to audio only, right? We do what's right because it's necessary for the success that we want, or the attainment of, I hate using the word rank, for the skill proficiency and the abilities and what those things can produce, right? We do what's right because it's necessary for that to happen. And we don't do what's wrong because it's a hindrance or an impediment to getting those things, right? Well, dude, you didn't come to class for like the last 2.5 weeks. But it could have been worse, Sensei. I could have been gone for 6 months. Yeah, you could have been, but that made it better. That's a social norm for people to take something that they slipped on and frame it to somehow make it look better by framing it against something that is much worse. So what? We should get credit for only being off for 2 weeks. Did you practice during those 2 weeks? Oh, just so much. I was just so busy. Right? You have to understand. I do understand. I understand that we have a teacher-student arrangement, and I'm not slacking on my responsibilities. Okay. So credit plays no part in our calculation. Whether or not we'll escape punishment, whether or not we'll be celebrated, they're not our concerns. Okay? And I'm not going to say, notice how I didn't frame it as they shouldn't be our concerns. See, that word shouldn't, it softens things and ego can dance around it. Or ego can get testy because ego thought I just told it what to do. I am making blanket statements about someone who has a certain personality type who is almost guaranteed success if they develop certain key things, right? And they lean into those things, okay? But again, whether or not we're going to be punished because we broke a rule or we did something underhanded or whatever, whether or not we're going to get a prize or a belt or whatever because we learned the lessons that we were supposed to and develop the proficiency with those skills to an agreed upon level that's necessary to get the next set of lessons, right? Why should there be a prize for that? That was necessary, right? either way, punishment, celebration, it's not our concern. Okay. Our concern is rooted in what we can control, in who we choose to be by what we do and by what we don't do, in core beliefs that we hold, which drive our actions. Okay. Can you be the only person in the room who believes that something is true when everybody else would laugh at you, condemn you, beat the shit out of you, or whatever? Okay. I don't know. Certainly makes for interesting conversations. Anyway, let me pop this out of here so I'm not seeing you. You've probably been able to see me the whole time. Yes, James? Right? Just because I brought my notes up, does it? Okay. So any questions or comments now? I know we're still looking at small numbers. Anything?
Dave Fletch just said he was here as well.
Stalker. All right, awesome. So back to it. All right, so let's take a look at this thing, right? So this thing called the Sankhya, San triple Kie is like a refuge, a safe haven, that kind of thing. They're these things that we can go to or lean into for protection or from shelter against shit that goes on out in the world, right? But there's a couple of different ways to look at this. Let's see where I have my notes here. I think I'm going to come back to that. Yeah, I'm definitely going to come back to that. All right, so the framework. Now we in our academy, whether you're working with us through long distance coaching or you are actually in the academy or whatever, okay, we just generally call this the student creed, right? And it's separate from two other frameworks that we have. But the essential nature of those frameworks or those things are the same. They're reworded a little bit differently. Some additional things are added as a student moves down the line. But the core difference between these three things that we have, the student creed, the vows of intention, and the warrior code of action, is a mindset shift at each level till we hit this goal where this is no longer something that we've memorized and we're reciting back. It's no longer something that we do. It's no longer something we believe in. It's no longer something I have just good intentions of doing. It becomes so much of who I am that I can't not do it, right? I've recreated or rewired the habit patterns. Okay. So as a, for instance, right, the student creed begins with the first three words, I believe in, and I'll go over that in just a minute. The vows of intention start off with, I intend to. So we get past this belief, trust, faith kind of idea that this is important and it's important enough to learn. But we give, they're structured as kind of positive affirmation kind of things, because even if nobody else is listening, when we say things, we say it again and again. So this subconscious part, unconscious part of us that has a picture of us hears it the same way it hears every statement, question, or comment by every other human being in our proximity who speaks on a regular basis. Anything with the word I attached to it or me attached to it, ego doesn't know the difference between somebody talking about themselves or the I or me in here. Okay? Which is why it's really important to control the groups that we're in. Some of you knew Shidoshi Paul. before he passed away. He started out as an electrician. He came out of school as an electrician and went into the home building, uh, commercial home building field, right? Not that he was I guess he was a contractor, but he wasn't out building standalone homes. He worked for home manufacturers like these prefab or not mobile homes, what they call them, modular homes. That's it. And so he was an electrician, and he eventually went back to school to become a nurse. And we had conversations about this, and the biggest deciding factor was he was taking these life philosophy lessons and life mastery lessons from our training and actively putting it to work in his life. And he had to identify one of the major impediments was the general mindset and cliched, constant speech patterns and ways of explaining things and whatnot of the people in that field when I was an electrician, right? People were leaving freaking shoddy work behind, knowing somebody would come up from behind and hopefully they'd fix it, but they didn't give a shit. It wasn't their house, right? Even though that's what they were paid for, right? So he realized that he could not become the person he wanted to be constantly listening to that kind of stuff. And I know we all think that, well, we know it's somebody else and consciously we know, yeah, I get that, right? But that part of your brain is not the part that's processing, that holds the picture of us, that when we do something or whatever that runs in contrast to our beliefs about who and what we are, that it feels weird because that's quote unquote not us. Okay? So anyway, so what I want to do very, very quickly, some of you know this already, but I want to lay a framework so everybody has it, and then we're gonna break this down. Okay. So the 3-part student creed, as we have it at the dojo, and this is not a word for word transliteration from the Japanese or from this actual triple refuge in Mikyo, right? But the essential nature is the same. So there's 3 parts. Parts 1 and 2 both have 3 short sentences that go together, and then part 3 has 2, right? But there is a statement of I believe in something, again, that's directly tied to the Sankhya, because these things are all important for success. All. If I lack the belief, positive belief in one or more of these 3 things, I will quit and ultimately fail. Okay? Nothing will happen. Okay? Especially in an educational thing like we're doing here, where we're trying to grow and learn and develop skills and those kind of things. It's impossible. Okay. And if it does happen, then somebody's doing something that still is in this realm, but they were probably already there anyway. Right? So it doesn't work this way. Right. So there is a statement about, there's a I believe in statement. Okay. And then there is a statement about a necessary quality that is needed, especially in warriorship, right? To smooth the way. And then there is a statement, or in the case of part 3, a continuation of that quality as that points to an outcome, or that points to a direct commitment to something. Okay. So again, I'll just recite these again. Some of you know them. You can probably say it along if you know it that well. For other ones, I highly recommend that you jot these down. Okay. Or not, your choice. Okay. And the words are not to be scrambled or paraphrased. Right. I have new students that they really try to memorize it, but they start to paraphrase. These words are it's minimalistic, and they're specific in a specific order, a specific type of word. This is not another thing in life to be generally, vaguely, kind of, maybe, possibly learned and used. Kind of, maybe, when I feel like it. Okay. All right. So, 3-part student creed. Part 1, I believe in myself. I am confident I can accomplish my goals. Part 2, I believe in what I study. I am disciplined. I am ready to learn in advance. Part 3, I believe in my teachers. I show respect to all who help me progress. It's really simple, right? It's really simple. Okay. So again, the original way it's given to students, it's given from like a perspective of the individual, right, is acting alone and they're hoping for success, right? That's why we use the word belief. In the vows of intention, the word belief isn't in there anymore, right? I've come to a certain stage. I'll talk about this later. And now this is important enough that I need to work on this. And so we start to express it differently. I intend to, this is important enough. I intend to do this to the best, to the best of my ability. Once we hit warrior code of action, there's no belief and there's no intention. These are statements of fact and reality for me as a person, right? There's nothing about intention or whatever. I train to, I will avoid, period. Yes, there's endings to each of those, but those are it's 2-part because we have a positive statement and a negative statement. We have things we're working on and things we will avoid, right? So again, just like I talked about earlier, right? We lean into the things that we can control and we avoid those things that will be hindrances to attaining the goal, right? So I train to, there's a whole bunch of these things, right? I will avoid, period, right? Not I intend to, not I'm going to do my best to, not I believe that I can probably do that most of the time when I think about it, whatever. Okay. So again, these are tools that we give students. And in the beginning, it seems like I gave them a replacement for, I don't know, the Pledge of Allegiance at school, because we all know how people recite the Pledge of Allegiance, right? And a lot of people make fun of people who actually do it seriously, right? Because it's just something you do, right? And you don't want to be like called out for not doing it, or, whatever. Okay. Yeah, no. Okay. Remember, even if nobody else is listening, your subconscious is listening. Okay. And it's creating a snapshot of who and what you think you are, and it won't allow you to step outside that paradigm. So unless the picture's changed, you just keep defaulting back to the same habit patterns. Right? This is not opinion. This is modern brain science. Okay? So, but from a perspective of being alone and hoping for success, right? So the student is given this thing that allows them to start with a basic set of positive, present tense, success-oriented affirmations or statements proven for centuries to get me where I am going, to get whatever I or me is describing the stuff, to get us where we're going, right? It's one of those default mechanisms. Mikio's loaded with these things. Eventually you grow beyond them because you develop the critical thinking skills that allow you to make decisions based on karmic outcome, cause and effect. If I do this and set this in motion, at some point in the future, it's going to bite me in the ass. So if I don't want that to bite me in the ass, I use one of the 4 right efforts, which is to avoid setting negative things into motion. Another one is doing everything I can to minimize and eliminate that which is already a hindrance or a negative, right? Everybody likes the first 2, right? Generate more of the positive, or generate, more positive and increase the positive that's already present. Well, that's all great. Except that if we don't increase those 2 things beyond what the negatives are creating, well, then, and even so, right? We can have a really fast speedboat, but if we left the anchor down, not going as fast as we could, right? Burning up more gas, getting frustrated, all kinds of shit, right? And maybe the ankle will break free, but that just means then we can't moor anywhere without drifting, So, all right. So all of this, right? This ultimately points to or makes me look at and creates clarity for what work is needed and where to place my focus. Okay. So let me do that again. Right. So the first part of the student creed, I believe in myself. I am confident I can accomplish my goals. Right. So again, I haven't covered things this way, not that I can recall, even for folks that have been around for a while. So I think this deserves a revisit. And if it's a first time for you, well, then this hopefully will point you to all of the stuff, all of the depth that is below any given thing in this art, any given lesson, whatever. Okay. So I believe in myself. Okay. I am confident I can accomplish my goals. Right. So if somebody's not confident, what if I'm not? Well, just keep saying it because eventually it'll work its way in. Okay. Just like when you hang out with a certain group, you pick up on their colloquialisms, you pick up on their uh, sayings because, well, some of us pick up on it very, very quickly because we want to be a part of the group. Right. And some of us, even in an attempt to resist it, it still bleeds in because that's what we hear all the time. Okay. But this points to our self image, right? I believe in myself. Okay. Some people have a hell of a time saying that one, right? But it points to self image, right? Which is made up of the value I think I have, right? Whether or not I'm deserving of the goal, believe it or not, right? We humans often aim for something, but if we're pressed on it about, what makes you think you, and I was asked questions like this, what makes you think you deserve that? Okay. Well, it'd be nice to see everything starts to waver, right? When I talk about self value, I mean, do you actually believe that, right, you're worth protecting, even if we're just talking about the self defense stuff, right? You are living a life and you are the type of person that is deserving of protection. Now, this question lights a lot of people's asses on fire because they think that I'm directly speaking to their value. I'm not. This has nothing to do with my opinion of anybody's value. This has to do with their opinion, right? And the questions have to be asked, right? So, because there's a huge difference between being afraid of death, being afraid of dying, being afraid of non-existence, and so wanting to learn to protect myself so that I'm not taken out. And again, these were Takama Sensei lessons to Hatsumi Sensei. Being of value to yourself and others, where you recognize that the I, right? The me, the ego. I can't do good in the world unless I'm in the world. Okay? So I've developed this thing. All my decisions create, right, a nice life for my family, to protect my children, to make sure they have the best chances of succeeding, and all that kind of stuff. Uh, you know, um, Parental privilege, right, to create and make decisions so that I have the resources and whatnot to help, for them to get good footing, and also the ability to withhold things from them so that they bang up against life in the world, and recognize that they need to develop skills other than, hey dad, can I have $20? Hey dad, can I borrow the keys to the car? Hey dad, can you teach me how to drive, because I'm tired of you not being available or me not being able to go whenever I want. So I really need to get my license and I need to save up for a car. Good call, dude. If you save up half the down payment, as long as you're nice to me, I'll help you with the other half. Okay. Or no, you're going to have to come up with this on your own, right? I'll cover the insurance, and only until this point, right? You were mean to your children. No, No, I was a reflection of the way the world works. Okay? And that way they don't freaking come back home because adulting was too hard. Right? Anyway, right? So it speaks to self-image, right? I believe in myself, right? Again, it's not about saying the words. It's about when I say them, it sounds like a statement. There's no wavering. There's no self-doubt, that kind of thing, right? Self-doubt is a huge killer for goal attainment. Okay. It also speaks to vision, right? Belief in what's possible for me. Right? It speaks to belief in the ability, in my ability to do the work and not procrastinate or engage in self-sabotage and a whole bunch of other things. Right? I'm confident, right? That you know, that I can do this. Okay? Um, I believe in myself. I'm confident. I can accomplish my goals. Right? Well, accomplishing goals assumes that I have a vision, right, about what that is, right? And I can accomplish my goals, right? I do what I need to do, um, right? And then that gets fed into the next one, right? The second one is I believe in what I study. I am disciplined. I am ready to learn in advance. Okay. Now, believing in what we study is believing that the program can get me where I need to go. For a lot of people, this is a foregone conclusion. Right? But do we really believe that doing a ski from uh, Seigan no Kamae or from Ichimonji no Kamae, right? This classical punch is going to work on the street. Most people don't. That's why they throw it away and do other things. Right? Um, but we could figure it out, right? Or we could find out from the teacher what their take is, right? Um, so. But what these things point to is one, a belief in the chosen path or program that I'm following to get me there, right? To get me to that goal I talked about in number one, right? It speaks to discipline, right? Which see, a lot of people associate discipline and control and things like that with force, right? Um, from a ninja's perspective, I think I covered this in tonight's class with students. One of the first lessons I learned as a white belt. A ninja takes control from the attacker long before his attacker ever realizes that he lost it. But that's not possible if we think that controlling somebody is based on force or giving ultimatums or whatever. You can get compliance if you're in a position of authority or power and they don't want to lose whatever it is that they have, their job, money through fines, whatever. But you also develop resentment. Okay? Control is had by affecting the person's perceptions about what they see or are experiencing in front of them. If I affect somebody, if I control somebody's perceptions of reality, this is where Kyujutsu Tenkan, disguising truth and falsehood and stuff like that comes in. If I control their perceptions of reality, then I control their thoughts, their plans, what they say and how they describe it internally and externally, and their actions, right? And everything they do, they think was their idea. Right? They wouldn't even feel like they were being controlled. Okay. Same thing with discipline. For a lot of people, again, discipline is translated through this lens of force, right? I have to force myself to do things. Maybe, and maybe it's not a forcing, it's an accepting that there's going to be discomfort until this thing becomes a habit. It's uncomfortable either because that's not our normal habit and it feels like I'm taking time away from this other thing that's actually a hindrance, right? Like sitting around eating cheese curls and binge watching Netflix for 47 hours. Whatever, okay? Is it enjoyable? I'm sure it is. However, is it getting you where you want to go? Unless you want to be, getting that trophy from Netflix for binge watching the most hours, or from Cheetos or whatever for sucking down the most cheese curls. Probably not, right? But it can also point back to self-image, right? That I have to keep fighting through. It's not me. But see, I prefer to look at discipline from a different perspective, and that's consistency. Right? Because if I trust the process, if I trust the program, not just I believe that the techniques will make me a badass, kick-ass, street warrior, whatever, okay, or my belt will impress other. If I believe in what in this case, Hatsumi Sensei, most of us are not. I'm not a direct student under these other Soke. I've trained with him, but Hatsumi Sensei was the direct connection was there. Other teachers at different times, but if I believe in not only the techniques that he showed, but the stuff that he explained, all this life mastery stuff that people would often tune out on or just nod, right? Then I'm going to do those things. If he made references to certain books or certain connections and whatnot, then I'm going to pursue those things, right? Is that stuff you normally read? No. But guess what? It's a part of the process. And if I want that thing, and this is the process that gets me there, remember, I believe in what I study. Okay. Not I will only study that which I believe in. It's a completely different thing, right? So, but it's consistency, right? And if science, modern science, and this life mastery recreation kind of system, Mikyo, that's organized 1600 years old, but goes back 3,000, 4,000 years, like way beyond the 2,500 plus that it's normally associated with, back into the Vedic traditions, back into the Upanishads, all this other secret stuff. Shit, right? And it's nobody's been able to break it, right? So if that tells me that I need to do something consistently for 21 days in a row to establish a pattern, to establish a habit, so that I'll just run on autopilot on that thing, right? Every day I will do this thing because the visceral system will fire and make me feel weird, just like it's doing when I'm trying to stack up those 21 days, because it's not me. Okay, great. If we're wired that way, then wire the habit in so that when you don't do the thing you're supposed to do, you get that same "this ain't me" feeling. Okay, we just make it work for us. Right. So there's that, right? It also points to effort and energy, right? Again, not just I believe in what I study. I'm disciplined. Great. Okay. Good. Okay. I'm ready to learn in advance. Points to I'm ready to do it now, right? I'm gonna do it now. I'm ready for this thing, right? So here's an interesting thing, and this kind of goes to that old saying that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Okay, because at least you can see out of one eye, right? You have way more than everybody else. I had a teacher tell me this one time that even half-assed energy applied to an incomplete goal or an incomplete vision, right, but worked consistently, still moves you forward. But let's be clear, this is all new stuff, and whatever realm somebody needs to move into, it's going to cause confusion, it's going to cause discomfort, it might even cause pain, whatever, right? It's going to suck to some degree. Sorry, right? It's part of the warrior's nature to accept the suck. If it weren't, a warrior would not insinuate themselves in between a victim and somebody trying to harm that victim, right? I'm stepping in and taking the hardship for them because that's what I've trained myself to do, right? Um, Again, very different, right? So, and then the third part, I believe in my teachers. I show respect to all who help me progress. So, kind of goes to what's a teacher, right? Well, a teacher is anybody that has ever taught me something that I didn't know or helped me learn it, or whatever, right? Did I want to learn it? No. Okay. They could be overt, right? They could be, um, they could be kind of behind the scenes or whatever, right? They could have been a negative role model. I'll go back to those in a minute, right? But, and then showing respect to everybody that has helped me progress. I mean, that even leans into showing respect to all the people that did you wrong. Because had they not, you wouldn't learn a lesson. Okay? You wouldn't learn, if nothing else, to watch out for that kind of tactic, that kind of person, that kind of, right? I mean, that's how we learn in the world. We bump into the world, right? Um, we avoid safe spaces. The safe spaces are in the dojo, and the safe spaces are with a collective group that can help us, right? So, just like the first part of the student creed, I believe myself and all that stuff there, the confidence and uh, I can accomplish my goals. It's all about the self. It's all about self-image and all that kind of stuff. The second one, I believe in what I study, discipline, ready to learn and advance. That really leans into learned beliefs, information, all that kind of stuff that we've picked up along the way. Okay? Because the ready to learn in advance, the discipline, whatever, that's what we need to get through all of the things that will contradict all the stuff in the program, all the lessons that will contradict all the shit that we think we know and all the stuff that we've been told. And we believed the person who told us, right? Because they would never lie to us, right? Not about you, but I I had certain people in my life that I had to recognize those things as well, but I can't use the typical parent things because I didn't have that kind of thing. My grandparents on my mom's side, they were the hinge-pin. And then I had an uncle that, again, very very good people, taught me lessons, all those kind of things. But we were young and we didn't know how things worked, didn't even know that we had control of anything. We were just kind of drifting through life with people telling us things and teaching us things, and we just kind of accepted it because, well, that's what they do, it must work, so that's what we do. And then it became a part of our self-identity, right? But this now starts to lean into that third part. um, we are always learning from teachers, but those teachers don't have to have job titles of. They don't have to be a martial arts teacher. They could be a senior in class who's really good at something and they're just helping us out with something. Or they say, hey, have you seen this technique or whatever, right? They're not the teacher for a class or whatever, but they're sharing something with us, and great. Okay. Could be a junior who just has experience in a certain area of the world and, you know, says, hey, have you seen this kind of an attack or whatever? How would we deal against that? So it sounds like they're asking for a solution, but my ears will tune into, wow, I haven't seen an attack like that. So, before I can answer that, I'm going to need to dissect that attack. Okay. Um, and now, in an attempt to get an answer from me and learn something from me, they actually taught me something. Okay. A student who's confused about a standard way I have of explaining something. Okay. And I have to come up with a new way to describe that to them or in a different analogy or whatever, um, has also taught me something, that my standard way of describing things is not a one size fits all. So I need to pay attention to more than just the words coming out of my mouth or the technique that I've demonstrated for the 4,727th time. Right. So, but this third part also points to a social group of influencers. Okay. So we respect others for being themselves, and we learn from even negative role models. I've talked about that in the past. But there's other things that we do in this realm. We focus on finding teachers who can teach us what we don't know, but they can also fix what we're off about. And they can point out our mistakes and anchors, right? And then couple that with constructing a group or a network of people uh, that are working on the same things, right? Many of which are ahead and of which are behind me. Okay. So this way I learn the lessons more completely because I have one, teachers who are walking, talking examples of the principles and concepts in action and they can produce the kind of results I want to produce. They have the level of understanding I want to have, right? It's not good enough for me. It's not good enough that somebody can demonstrate the same technique that 500 other people have videos up and are demonstrating online. Okay? And if I don't know what makes the technique work or why I'm doing certain things, then why does it matter that I can duplicate their movements? Okay? I mean, I have to do that so I can understand the lesson. But if I don't know what I'm looking at, then it's kind of pointless, right? But again, I have teachers, right? This social group. I have teachers who, right, can fix things, shed light on things. That kind of, they don't really fix it. They point things out that need to be. I have to do the work, right? But I also have seniors who have been through some of the same trials, some of the same confusion, hardships, whatever, who can help pull me up and provide support and reassurance that, look, dude, this is a normal part of this, right? You're going to get this. It's okay, right? We've all been through it. Keep moving, right? But I also have access to juniors who cause me to learn the lessons more fully as I help to pull them up while learning to navigate their own unique learning types, spin on common problems, uh, need to know uh, they need to know that just like me, that they're not alone. So I have somebody ahead of me pulling me. I'm doing the same thing and I'm learning from both ends, right? So this actually again overlaps that vows of intention because this is needed to consistently do the work, right? But if we dissect the student creed, what we see are these different key pieces for success because this wasn't made up out of the ether. This wasn't made up as a cool thing that I'm just going to enforce in the dojo and make my students memorize and recite it back so we can all be chanting the same, sensei's great, sensei's good, sensei trains with steel and wood, whatever, right? I mean, we're not, it's not made up that way, right? It's designed from my end to help a student get over and around their own defense mechanisms and inhibitions and hindrances and things like that. But if a student reverse engineers it and looks at it, there's a roadmap. Okay. So I believe in myself. Do I? Okay. I was just asked a question the other day, right? Because I was talking to somebody who flat out admitted, right, during the conversation, they don't like themselves very well. Okay. And then in the next breath, they looked at me and said, "Do you like yourself?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. I like myself. I like myself enough to treat myself to the things that I need to change the things that need to be changed so that I can have a better experience of life." Right. Um, I, while I have lots that I need to work on, I work on those things because I like myself and I want to be and to present the best version of myself. Right. I do have value. Right. I'm very clear about things I don't know about and I don't want to know about. So if somebody asks me questions about that, not a clue, dude. However, I think I have a student or I know somebody that I can point you in that direction. Or I've done lots of Google searches and Boolean searches and whatnot. So do a search on this phrase, you'll get a very different kickback from Google or whatever your search thing is than what most people type in. Do this, right? So I can at least point them in that direction. But the things that I am good at, have nurtured and all that, absolutely I'm going to lean into that. Now, does that make me narcissistic? I don't think so, right? Although we all have an edge to that, because if we didn't think that we were important, if we didn't think that we were valuable and whatever, then narcissism, to an extent, as part of a character trait, or as a aspect of our character, is a defense mechanism, right? I think more of myself than I do of the dumb shit that those people are doing over there, and my own value, so that I'm not doing that shit to screw myself up, right? So yeah, I believe in myself, right? Value, I do deserve the goal, right? I absolutely believe that, and it's not just about me. I believe that everybody deserves to accomplish their own their goals, whatever they are. One, I believe that none of us have been given a dream or a goal or an aspiration that is not attainable. Right? It just doesn't work that way. You can't dream up something that you don't know exists, and if the fact that you know it exists is because other people have done it, and there's stories about them, or there's records or whatever. So what we're really saying is, I want to do that too. I want that for me, right? I want to be able to do that kind of stuff, right? And then I can accomplish my goals, right? See, what's the question, right? The question is, one, do I have a vision that is strong enough to drive me there? And if not, how can I describe it better so that, but see, that's going to do a feedback loop, because we may end up, I know for the longest time I would not paint a picture of my future vision, because there was a part of me poking from behind, getting me to not use certain words or to describe the goal to its fullest extent, because dude, that's, how the hell are you gonna do that? That's too, wait, who the hell do you think you are, that you, seriously, right? That's not us. That's not the family you came from. That's not the, okay. So again, these things kind of feed back on each other, but I can accomplish my goals. Can you, based on the habit patterns that you have, not only what can you do to make it happen, what things do you already do consistently, right? And so can you use that timing, that scheduling in the day? Can you fit it around that, right? But will you? And if you don't currently, or you're not sure, what needs to be changed? What sub habits, what sub beliefs need to be changed so that those get answered with a yes, and they become statements, not things that drum up weird feelings and stuff, right? Same thing. We go into the second one. I believe in what I study. How deeply do you believe, not just in the techniques and the coolness of them and the effectiveness and all that, but how much do you believe in the system itself? Because the system is loaded with processes that help to develop those skill sets, right? Do you? Right. And now that double feeds back to, right, I can accomplish my goals. Yes, you can, right? Only if you do things consistently and whatever, right? So now that feeds back to the second one, right? I believe in what I study. I am disciplined, right? I know what discipline is simple. Discipline is knowing what needs to be done and doing it, regardless of whether anybody else is watching, regardless of whether there's a prize for getting it right, or a consequence or punishment for getting it wrong, right? If somebody has to threaten you or bribe you, I tell my kids this all the time, somebody has to threaten you or bribe you before you'll act, then in the absence of those things, you're going to go nowhere, right? Can you motivate yourself? And I don't even think it's motivation, right? But if that's what it takes, right, then wire that into your vision, right? At a certain point in my life, the reason for training, even through the toughest of times, was having to look a loved one in the face um, after an attack that I couldn't protect. And I had some pretty wild and crazy visions, as in, like, I saw them beaten or bruised, I saw them raped, I saw uh, their dead eyes staring back at me. That was enough to motivate me, right? You have to find your own. Okay. Um, so, but again, part of it wasn't about me. Earlier on, it was. The motivation was, I will never be terrorized or in fear of my health and well being like I was growing up. I'll never let another human being put me in that situation where I cannot protect myself. Okay? See, once I got a handle on protecting me, then it kind of branched out to other ones, because once I had things and I felt comfortable, then what happens? Well, then ego starts to convince you that you don't need to do it anymore. Except, okay, I can protect me. Is the assumption that because I can protect me, I can protect others valid? And under what kind of circumstances? Okay. That's why when we used to do demonstrations for street fairs here locally, um, one of the common statements that women would make about, why they didn't take self-defense is because that was their husband or boyfriend's job. It was very, very common. So we wired a skit into a street demo where the woman defended, and we experimented with different things. But when the women defend themselves, that kind of went over the same with the same kind of emotional impact as everybody else doing techniques. So what we did was we had a guy and a girl walking across the stage area, like they were at the fair, right? So I mean, there's funnel cake and all kinds of shit, right? Bad food for you. And so they're walking along, and the bad guy comes up from behind, and we had this big old padded club. You couldn't miss it, right? And they just slammed the boyfriend from behind and laid him out cold on the street, and then moved in on her, and she had to defend herself. Okay, because we needed to convey things in a way that people don't think about. If we're going to move forward, we need to think about, or ask a teacher, what would I need to be thinking about that I don't know, right? So anyway, right? Again, it doesn't just point to discipline, right? Am I consistent? Am I able to self-motivate myself, right? How badly do I want this, right? And I'm ready to learn in advance, right? What does that mean? Not just the commitment and the action and the willingness to do the work, right? Okay, I'm ready to learn in advance. One, am I open to getting the lessons, regardless of whether they sting or I don't know that I'm going to like that. I don't like the roll, Sensei. I don't care. Right? The world doesn't care. The universe doesn't care. Bad guy hopes that you don't like rolling, so much so that you didn't practice. That way, when he takes your ass to the ground, you do a 1-point landing with no landing gear and your nose ends up in your freaking underwear. That'd be awesome, right? I'd pay to watch that. Okay? So, fantastic. How's it feel to not like rolling? Okay? I'm not asking you that you ever have to like it. I don't like to pay taxes, but I don't want to sit in jail and get ass raped by somebody either. So, I pay my taxes. Okay? Now, I also pay somebody to make sure that I'm not paying for stuff that I don't need to. So half my life is deductible, right? Whether somebody thinks that's fair or not. If not, change the laws. Okay. I'm up for a flat tax where we all pay the same percentage no matter what. It's not the same dollar sign, but I'm up for that. Okay. I'd rather have a flat tax up front and get rid of a sales tax, or get rid of the income tax and increase the sales tax by a percentage point or 3. That way it's voluntary, right? If I'm not willing to pay the tax, then I won't buy that thing. If I am, right? And the numbers have already been done by economists. That'll make the state much more money than people cheating on their taxes. Anyway, so but again, all of these things point to what we're doing or what we're not doing. But I want to circle back to the not really circle back. I want to look at a very specific part, right? We're gonna look at the third part of the student creed, that social group of influencers, teachers, juniors, whatever, right? The groups that we associate ourselves with, and the sheer power in there. Okay, loaders have a hell of a time, right? Because they don't have anybody else around that's doing the same thing they are. It's a hell of a life, I know, right? Mine changed when I established a training group. Yep, they were all juniors, and yep, I was in a teacher position, but see, I was attracting people that were all working on the same thing. And then we ended up with shared stories and whatever. Okay. But before I just review I believe in my teachers, that kind of stuff. The stuff that I originally said I was going to skip over at the beginning, you don't know what it is. I just decided I was going to do it. Right. So we need to think about, or we need to understand. You can think about whatever you want. We need to understand, if we're serious about this, we need to understand the conscious and subconscious influence that those in our environment have over us, have on us. Okay. We need to understand, and I'm going to split this into omote. There's an omote and there's an uda to this. The omote is this obvious thing, right? So what this is how we've been influenced to be as we are, right? Socially, we've been influenced by a lot of factors, right? Everything from education to random groups we've been in different things. I mean, like, a social group of friends in high school, or this group that meets after work, or, people that I chat with back and forth online. We tend to gravitate toward people like us, right? If we're going to change that, our selection process has to be different, right? But also familial conditioning, right? What was the general belief that was conveyed, spoken or unspoken, within the family union or the family dynamics about what we do, what our beliefs are, what's possible for us, right? And if you don't remember anybody talking about it in those terms, then think about what they complained about and how they described the thing that they were complaining about. Okay? That'll tell you everything you need to know about what that belief system was, because that's the beliefs are what's describing the words and the feelings. Okay. So it's everything from social, familial, those kind of things, to self and other belief constructs, right? What I mean by the self thing is experiences that we had, what we came to believe, what we chose to believe, right? About ourselves, about the world, about the way things work, that kind of thing, right? But see, most of the stuff that we're going to be combating was developed during childhood, where we had little to no control over things, over our own development. We didn't even know we could control that, right? We had no freaking idea how most of the world worked outside of our normal bubble or micro bubbles, because this is my bubble called my home. This is a bubble called my classroom, or the school I go to, or the bus I ride, or Aunt Jean's house, or what. I didn't even have an Aunt Jean, but you get the idea, right? So the way Mikyo and Ninpo work is we're all grown up now, okay? So the Uda side, the secret side, is we're gonna run the same processes that the world and all these influences ran on us accidentally, but we're going to take control of the process. Okay. Now that we're older, we can control more of the process to become who and what we want to be as opposed to us being shaped like clay by some potter, and we were just on the wheel and they were accidentally or on purpose bumping into us and thinking how cool that shape would be, or imposing their lacks or their fears or their uh, you know missed dreams and hopes and whatnot, that we were going to, they're going to live vicariously through us or whatever it was, right? Okay, so now here's a caution. We all need to be careful, and I didn't realize this until I don't know, decade or two ago. I've been doing this for a while, okay? But we need to be careful, because who and what you want to be right now is still being conditioned by the results of the omote, of the stuff developed to this point. Right? We're picking and choosing from. Again, we need to be nice to ourselves, because ultimately we're always doing the best we can with what we have. And if we're not, well, until we get to that point, nothing's going to change. If we're not doing the best we can with what we have, we're doing like bare minimum, or we're doing good enough or whatever. I mean, shit, can you imagine? Right? Not even a ninja. Just imagine a James Bond movie, right? And James Bond is like, he needs to get to some place to meet up with the villain, right? And he, like, didn't feel like doing the work or putting in the requisite paperwork or whatever to take a flight to get there as quickly as possible. And so 4 days later, right, he and his rumpled tuxedo come walking off the back of the bus that he's been sleeping on for the last 4 days, right? And the bad guy's already moved on 3 days ago. Okay? So anyway, but now, right, we can use, again, the outcomes, right, to construct, to build, right, to arrange. Anybody listen to last week's Whiteboard Wednesday when I covered the difference between kamai and dachi, and how kamai, right, we often translate that as a posture, body, mind, spirit, attitude, posture, whatever. That's one way to look at it, but the kanji for kamai actually means to build, to construct, to arrange. We are building, like if we're using this in a combat sense, right? We are building or constructing or arranging things in a way that impede him, make my job easier, control the situation, but present things in a way that allow him to think that we're in a weak position, right? In everybody's dream fantasy to become the master ninja, where they just blindly accept the kamai as they are, or they play yeah but, or call somebody an asshole or whatever because that person was like that ichimonji. That makes no sense, man. Your arm can be grabbed, your leg can be swept, right? Yeah, it can be. If I don't know how this thing works, if I don't know how other people look at this kamai, yeah, right. But when we start looking at the kamai from the perspective of they operate based on the Kyujutsu Tenkan, disguising truth and falsehood, right? Their deceptions, okay? They cause confusion in the eye of the attacker, right? Or not, right? They work on delusion. So somebody who doesn't know what they're looking at, somebody who makes blind assumptions, they're not a critical thinker or whatever, they're going to see the openings, just have this, holy shit, this is easy, right? And then when they come in, they just run into the bear trap. The person we need to be worried about that's really, really good, critical thinker, strategic thinker, tactical, or they're a tactician, they're going to look at that and go, wait, he looks like he's covered or he looks like he's protected, but there are all these weaknesses. Is he protected or not? See, I want that guy to stall. Awesome. Right? But this lesson is for life as well. Hazumi Sensei said that for decades, right? Not just a good martial arts lesson, not just a good ninja lesson, good life lesson, right? We have the ability to build, to construct, to arrange things to our benefit. But we could be willing and not know how. That's why we get a teacher, right? Hopefully somebody just knows more than just some moves, right? Because we don't just need to know what to do or how to do it. We need to learn how to think about it. We need to learn to be a puzzle solver, problem solver, right? And we need to expand our toolkit, because if our toolkit was already the size that we needed to be and the tools were there that we needed, we would have a different life. We'd have a different experience of it. We'd have different, right? But ego is in there to protect us against the stuff that we don't want to have to see or think about, including the fact that ego was wrong. Okay? So again, now we can use the outcomes to construct all that kind of stuff, right? Those things that originally were accidental before, right? Social, familial, etc., right? That kind of thing that produced, right? The things that originally produced the me and I had no control. Now I can use social, familial, those kind of influences to produce the me I want to be. But here's the difference, right? I have to put myself in different social circles, the ones that already contain people working on what I want to be working on, that contain the teachers or mentors or seniors that are doing what I want to be able to do. And when I say familial, I'm not talking about blood. I'm talking about the new family, the dojo family, the people that will understand me and be there. And maybe it's only me, but I don't think so, because I have lots of peers that feel the same way. And there's a quote, and I can't remember who came up with the quote, but that true family are rarely, if ever, born under the same roof. This has nothing to do with blood. This has nothing to do with genetics. This has to do with this similar calling. Anyway. So we will still ultimately be influenced. I typed this out in capital letters for me, right? So because when I had this little moment, it was like, holy shit, this needs, I didn't bold it or italicize it. I probably should have wrapped stars around it and everything. We will still ultimately be influenced by the social, by the familial. But now it's a new group of family, quote unquote, right, that we're a part of. But if we've done it correctly, those influences will be exactly what we want and need them to be to produce the me that produces the outcomes I want to produce. No, that was not double talk, and I didn't turn it inside out. Okay? We need more than just a desire or a drive. Okay? There are a whole bunch of influences that either we're not aware of, or that we are, but we won't realign ourselves to those things, that are directly or indirectly, consciously or unconsciously conspiring to fuck us up, to derail us, to make us normal. I don't know about you, but I've seen normal. Well, thank you. Okay? Now, when I'm in my groups, right, I started a school so I can surround myself by people that want to be, and some of them stick it out and get to a point where, yeah, this is cool, right? But when I create that group, or when I move, or I find groups that I can be a part of, right? See, now they're going to influence me, and they're going to be what I need, but I'm still going to be uncomfortable because they're producing results that I'm not yet, but want to be. Right? There's all this back and forth kind of stuff. But again, ultimately, what I wanted to cover was this Sankhya, this triple refuge. That sounds just like something that I need to memorize to pass a test to get my belt. Sensei's being too anal about it. Why do I have to recite it exactly this way? Because words matter. The order of the words matter, right? What it points to matters, right? So again, on the Omote side, it can just be used as a set of positive affirmations, said consistently, not just not just crammed to pass the belt test and then I can forget it next week. These are statements about how we live. So I need to say it until I can't forget it. But when I can't forget it, then it's in subconscious storehouse and it's, whether we know it or not, guiding decisions. Right? So I think that's where I want to stop. Right. Actually, I have one other part. So some of you, I've mentioned this in other KUDEN. There is this Zen. I don't know if it's a koan or if it's just this Zen verse, because it tends to make people stop and go, "Wait, what?" Huh? Which is the point, right? Zen, these Zen koans, they're not really poems, but they're kind of like that. They're these statements that get your left brain to lock up and put you in this Zen state kind of thing, right? But they get you to ponder. And I'm just going to paraphrase this thing that in the beginning, right, for the average person, rivers are rivers, trees are trees, mountains are mountains. To a student on the path and studying, rivers are no longer rivers, trees are no longer trees, and mountains are no longer mountains. But to a master who has discovered wisdom, rivers are once again rivers, trees are once again trees, and mountains are once again mountains. And again, this sounds like, well, shit, what the hell's the difference between a master and an average person, right? If they see the same thing, they don't see the same thing, right? That study area created someone who wasn't looking at trees. They were looking at that tree from this perspective and not making assumptions about what they don't have information about yet. That it's a whole different way of seeing things. The experience is different. Less hardship, less suffering. It's called dukkha in Sanskrit. It's not created, right? Because we're not doing the whole vague living, right? To a master, let me go back through this thing because I broke it down based on the Shuhadi model. A lot of you guys know this, right? It's this historical training model. Shu means to copy or preserve, and so when your teacher teaches you a technique, no henka are allowed, no variations, right? You copy them. What if their stuff is flawed? How would you know? And if you can't do what they're doing, then you can't do the right thing either. And if that's the teacher you've chosen, then you can at least learn as much as they can teach you before moving on. It doesn't matter. What matters is you can't do it yet. So goal number one is do this thing, do it this way consistently until you don't have to think about how to do it. Ta-da. Then, right? So to a beginner, right? Remember that, to a beginner or to an average person, right? Shu, learn the creed. To a student on the path, right? The ha level, the shuhari is ha in this case means to break. So what you're doing is you're breaking things, you're creating variations, you're seeing where it breaks, when it's applicable, in what situations it doesn't work, all kinds of things, right? So you're exploring. So to a beginner, shu, right? Learn the creed. Nothing else matters. No dissecting or anything matters until we know it. That way we carry it with us all the time, and we can just recite it and then start pondering, right? But to a student on the path, exploration of the meaning, where I am within it, and working the system to live up to the truth of the statements. Right? Do I really believe in myself? I need to work the system until I get to a point where I live up to the truth of the statements. I believe in myself. I am confident. Right? I'm just as confident with things that I've chosen to not learn anything about. Like, I'm confident I would break the engine in my car if I tried working on it. Okay. I choose ignorance. I used to be able to fix a car, but I stopped after I couldn't climb into the freaking engine compartment. Right. And mechanics have a hard enough time keeping up, but I'm okay with paying somebody else to fix my car. They screw it up. They fix it on their dime, not on mine. Okay? So, but we keep working it until we've sewn up the holes in there and we can answer those questions, not just answering them with a yes, right? Hopefully we don't lie to ourselves. It's bad enough when we lie to other people and we're disingenuous. When we lie to ourselves, we're blowing smoke up our own ass. You can't fix that. Right? So again, to a beginner, learn the creed. To a student on the path, that's that hot level, right? So exploration of the meaning, all that kind of stuff, right? And we want to live up to the truth of the statements. To a master, re, right? That re stage, re means transformation. It means a transformation has occurred. Okay. It also means transcendence, right? We've transcended the need for the model. We've transcended the need for the form. Okay. So I believe in myself. I believe in what I study. I believe in my teachers. The beliefs or trust or faith or whatever in the three parts of the Sankhya, right, are a part of me. They're not just memorized fluff. So the words belief or whatever go away. Okay. What do you mean? Do I believe in myself? I know myself, right? If I know something, belief doesn't exist. Belief is something we have in the absence of evidence or validation, but we need to navigate a certain area. Okay, so I believe in myself. I believe in myself. The little engine that could, chugga chugga chugga, right? But I know myself. I know what my strengths are. I know what my weaknesses are, right? So, I am a walking. I'm making a statement here, but this is to the master, right? I am a walking, talking, living example of these beliefs, right? Beliefs become a foregone conclusion. Of course I am. Of course I do, right? But I would have a hard time using the word belief. Do I believe in myself? I know myself, right? There's no people equate them together, right? Belief and know, it's the same thing. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Right? If I know something, it's right there in front of me. I have factual evidence. I have beliefs about things that I choose those things because they help me navigate a certain way. I don't choose others. But there's validation that they work as well. I know, but I'm going to do this. Okay? I believe this works best for me. Right? So now we hit that point. Now we're walking, talking examples of the warrior code of action. Because we've transcended from I believe to I intend to work on these things or I intend to develop these things to this is the way it is. Right? I train to protect life and health. I will avoid the violent treatment of others whenever possible. I train to develop a calm mind. There's a whole bunch of these things, right? I will avoid anything that would create disturbance in my mind, right? So at this point, we'd be able to say that our kama is strong. We have built or constructed our new self, our new lives through the arrangement or rearrangement of that which was required to be, have, and do as the new me must to be what I want to be and to have the life I want to have. All right. Let me get out of this thing here. Right. I know I talk a lot. Anyway, James, questions, comments from anybody? Sensei, you're full of shit. Maybe. No, I went today. It's all good. I don't have brown eyes, so it must stop right here. Now, a bunch of brown-eyed people are going to go, oh, what are you saying?
The only other thing that came in was Merrill Barnett said good evening.
Good evening. I'm going to do that during our Halloween, or one closest to Halloween. Anyway, nothing. I probably stalled everybody's mind or put them to sleep. James, what was quick pop quiz interview for you? Anything stand out for you, aha wise, as I was going through that? Because most people leave the student creed behind, right along with all the basic techniques that they leave behind, forgetting that there's no such thing as white belt techniques. They're white belts that are suitable, or they're techniques that are suitable to convey the lessons, right, at white belt. The lessons that we have in for white belts are the things that are necessary to handle the most common attacks that are out in the world today. Not the what if, not the sword wielding attacker, not the whatever, right? So, and they're not dealing with a killer, right? So, but we know what happens when people move from mod 1 to mod 2, right? Just look at all the new toys. And when they get ready to test for their black belt, and we want to see a technique they learned in mod 1, if it's not rusty as hell, it still looks the same as it did when they learned it in mod 1. There's been no addition of any of the principles and concepts, the extra ones learned along the way, that would make that look different, operate better. Yeah. That's sad. Sad. Anyway, so anything stand out for you?
Not off the top of my head right at the moment, but most of these, for me, most of this, even like with the coaching calls that you do and everything, I usually have to go through it once, and then I have to go back through it. And,
yeah, I hear that a lot. But that's the nature of things, right? I mean, if it made perfect sense right off the bat, then that's a sign. And this Reverend Jikai taught me this when we were dealing with like training with the mandala, that if a lesson is easily understood, then the prerequisite information, understanding, lessons, proficiency, insight, all that kind of stuff is already there. Right? If it causes confusion or it needs to be processed, then we need to figure out where beliefs or knowledge or whatever is either missing, it has a hole in it, it's skewed, or it's just flat out wrong, right? So it's not that things haven't served us up to this point, and I've used this analogy in the past. A strong man, let's say James is, weightlifter or fitness guy or whatever, and I go to him, right? James can tell me exactly what I need to do and help me get to that level of fitness or strength or whatever. You get that, right? A strong man can help a weak man become strong, because all he has to do is teach that person or give that person the same process that he used to traverse the same divide. But if that strong man wants to get stronger, that process that he gave the weak guy won't work for him. It'll create a plateau. It's not going to do anything. He needs a different routine and a different way of doing things to get to that next level. Because if the previous one would get him there, he'd already be there, right? But people miss that. They get one process and they think that's it. The student I enrolled today, He has lots of techniques. He's a 4th degree black belt in the Budokan, right? But he says every time he listens to me teach, and I say, okay, at this point you should know this. At this point, he's like, I don't know that, right? But his big crux is the why and the how things get applied, because he's got all the techniques, but I'm not producing those kind of results. I can do the step by step, right? I can duplicate things as long as we're doing soft training, as long as my partner's doing slow movement, whatever. But as soon as resistance is applied, shit breaks, whatever. Okay. Well, the process needed to work out the why and the hows. It's not the same as the process for collecting the kata to get started, right? It's not the same, right? So again, we have to remember that, again, just using this analogy, a strong man or a teacher at any level, right, can help a weak man get to that point. But they themselves can't use the same process to get to the next level. They need a completely different process. Okay. So I told this, or I said that, not because everybody is at a certain level of training, like my new student, and needs a new process to get to the next level. What I'm talking about is we have been using the same process, the same beliefs, the same everything to produce the life we have. We can't do that faster and harder to produce different results. Doesn't work that way. The process, beliefs, and activities and actions and descriptions and all that kind of stuff that we've been using, what we have is what that produces. Nothing can change that. Right? That's karma, not fate, not destiny, cause and effect. Right? And to make the change, things are going to suck because we're going to lose our ground. What's that one mentor say all the time, James? Embrace the suck. Because it's a part of the process. You keep doing it until and you'll just keep doing it and sucking less and less and less until you have it. And then you'll discover that you have a whole different problem. And then you need a different process. And guess what? Things are going to suck as you start with that process, because you're going to find out all that you don't know. Okay? This is not like grade school where they're just going to teach you stuff that you have to repeat back on a test to get a good grade. That's not the way this works, right? That's not growth. Kind of it is, right? We forget that little kid that was given a big fat pencil that had to lean over your shoulder and use the paper that had wood chunks still in it and big freaking lines that were apart, tracing out a capital A or whatever the next letter was and drilling it, right? And the lines being all squiggly because right? We had to do that to get a grade, but we were taught that we had to do that because we wanted to learn, right? So we were given lots of benefits for doing that. But the reality is, if we didn't go through that suck process, what's the point, right? People cheated the system. Can I put more space between each of the B's so I don't have to write as many or whatever? But the reality is that we need that practice to wire that shit into muscle memory so that you can let thoughts flow out onto paper and your hand keeps up and you don't, right? Just draw an X, got my name, right? So anyway, it is what it is, right? And just like I put on the slide, I'll bring it up again, right? This I did on purpose, right here, right there. For many, no matter how guaranteed things would be, they still won't do what they need to do. So in all honesty, guys, I would just rather somebody be honest that they're not going to do the work anyway. So I'm just going to hang out on YouTube and do whatever, whenever. Great. Fantastic. because it not only saves both of us a whole lot of time, effort, and energy before we break up, because I have fired students in the past, but it also isn't a time or energy suck to fellow students who are there for the right reasons. Not knowing what to do is not the same as knowing but not going to do it because I think I know better, because look at all I produced. I'm working on my own shit to get beyond where I am now. Right? It's part of the process. James, you working on stuff? Of course, right? So anyway. Okay, last minute questions or comments from anybody that we didn't already put to sleep. If you're asleep, put your hand up. That's just not funny. All right. Well, he's looking for that stuff. Don't forget, fall camp is coming up. Right. The theme this year is body, mind, spirit integration. I know it sounds all woo, doesn't it? What we're going to be doing is looking at everything from 3 different perspectives, because they're all supposed to be in the technique or the skill or the randori or whatever it is. They're all in there anyway. Right. The fact that we don't want to look at it means that we're okay with being crippled based on the way this art is supposed to be and the power inherent in the techniques. Those things are in there, right? Or I'm just going to make it up, or other teachers didn't tell me that was important, so therefore, or they didn't hold me accountable for that, for rank or whatever. So now I'm not making that shit up. I had a student once, second-degree black belt, when he came to me, right? His Ichimonji no Kamae scared me. And I don't mean it was a scary Kamae like, oh shit, he's going to kick my ass. I mean, his Kamae was broken. His rear leg was drifted in, right? And I mean, it was buckled to the inside. The knee was out of position relative to the hip and the ankle. And what keeps us standing as human beings is an alignment between the hip, the knee, and the ankle. That's how we take people down. You misalign one or more of those, he can't stand up. You don't have to knock somebody down. You just make it impossible for them to stand up. But it was buckled in, and I said, that's got to be fixed. You're going to blow your meniscus out one of these days, and it's not going to be in training. And what he said was, my last teacher got me all the way to second-degree black belt, told me that that was natural for me, and so therefore it was correct because sensei said, do what's natural for your body. That's not natural for anybody's body. That's a habit that caused your leg to grow in a fucked up position, and you're going to break simply because gravity and torque is working against a joint that's not designed to work that way. And he said it was okay, so I'm going to keep doing it. How long did I say before, James? In less than a month, he called me up and said he was out of training permanently because he finished dinner and went to stand up, get up from the dining room table, and his leg blew out to the inside, just gave way. I don't understand it. I wasn't like training and nobody kicked it or anything. Dude, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. That straw didn't break the camel's back. The camel was loaded with a shit ton of straw, and that was the one that happened to be placed. That was one too many that blew shit out. Right? See, we have all these sayings, but nobody really knows the true meaning behind the saying. Oh, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Like somebody did one little thing, and that person folded, right? That's like all these freaking non-warriors. I'll be nice. These non-warriors today that are easily triggered by whatever, right? They have no fucking idea how the world works. They want it to be a certain way, and when it doesn't happen that way, they instantly go into a panic attack because they don't know how to handle themselves. They don't know how to handle the world, and they want everybody else to rush in and rescue them when shit gets tough. And that will produce more of the same anxiety and weakness. There's now all these psychological studies out and stuff that are backing up all this shit that was put in place, trigger warnings on things, safe spaces and all that. They now have all these studies that have shown that these things create more and a worsened condition for the things that they were put in place to protect people from. Just like we need to be thrown to get better ukemi. We need to be hit to understand how to write it off better. We need to be, right? But we all know it's much easier to act like a warrior than to be a warrior. Which is why warriors don't have any time for that, which is why people don't get the attention they would like from the people that they admire, because those people can see right through the bullshit. And they ain't got time for that. They'll be cordial because that's who they are. But they're not spending a whole lot of time, effort, and energy on somebody who's not going to practice anyway, who's only in it to look good or to get the next rank. Hatsumi Sensei made a butt ton of money giving people rank who wanted rank. There you go. Just pay him 30,000 yen, $300. Right? You want the rank? Here you go. Right? But they'd be pissed off if they found out that like he just gave it to them because they were willing to buy it. That's fucked up, huh? Okay. It's what you wanted. You got what you wanted. If you wanted skill proficiency, you wouldn't have given shit what color belt you had or what rank you have. Yeah, but Sensei, you have, yeah, I know, but Sensei's still pissed off about all the rank I have. So anyway, all right. Anything else, James? Anybody else drop a 2 yen idea in there?
Dave put his hand up and waved.
I knew he would. Hopefully, I'll see him in class tomorrow night, so that'll be cool. All right. Fall camp, November 8th, 9th, and 10th of November. Duh. Right? And then Daikomyo-sai is out in January, 10th, 11th, and 12th of January. I don't have a theme picked yet, but I will shortly. And those of you who are going through the Mod 3, Dominate, and Win part of the black belt, white belt to black belt program. James, how many videos did we just upload between Sunday and more will be going up probably tomorrow? A dozen or more, easily.
12 to 15.
12 to 15. Yeah, I was kind of busy. It wasn't the shooting of the video. That's the easy part. It's the freaking editing and getting all the stuff done. So that should be enough to keep some of you guys busy. The Monday Q&A Zoom class from the dojo, that'll be up by tomorrow, Wednesday at the latest, something like that. So we're just moving forward. There's plenty more that I need to get caught up on. For those of you, again, going through that program, because I got derailed and because I fell behind on that kind of stuff, we kind of hit today would have been the last day of the 16 weeks of that extra Monday Q&A class. So what I did to kind of help make up for just me being derailed, besides putting up an extra dozen and a half videos, was to extend those weekly bonus classes by 3 weeks. So we've got 3 more. Okay. And then that'll give us enough time to wrap things up. And then we're probably going to take a month off, month and a half, something like that, before I'm ready to release or to let people in for the Mod 4 stuff. Okay. So it'll all be good, right? Just onward and upward. Okay. If I die, James is in charge. My dying breath will be, "No, you're in Shidoshi." Whatever. Punch toward your head. If you move, then you get promoted. Right? Or you can be like the Godfather, those mafia movies or whatnot, right? You know, kill me and then walk out and go, "In his dying breath, he said that I was in charge." Shit. All right, that's it. We're going to get all like punch silly. All right. Let's see. If I don't see you in one of the regular classes and whatnot, hopefully I'll see you on Wednesday for Whiteboard Wednesday. And if not, I'll see you next week on KUDEN. Get more of KUDEN Radio. Subscribe through your favorite podcasting site or join our clan of serious modern warriors at onlineninjaacademy.com.